That. How about that? Good? All right. How about that? Good. Okay, sweet. Nice. Awesome. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming to this. It's amazing. Yeah, this is rad. All right, so my name is Mark. I am a mixing engineer and producer here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm the studio manager of the place that you're in right now, Vaughn Music Studios, as well. We got to build this place from pretty much scratch. It was an office building before, and we gutted it and made a studio in it, which is, for me, like that seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So that was pretty rad to be involved with that. So yeah, I got to build this place and make records here for a number of years, and still do to this day. So in addition to that, you guys can check out vmsrecording.com if you want to learn more about the studio. Big shout out to Cindy Vaughn, the owner. Cindy's an amazing vocal coach in town, and we're lucky to have her in town, and I feel like it's an understated thing, but her background is crazy. She started off, her first big thing was in the 80s, doing vocal coaching for Star Search, and that eventually led to doing vocal coaching for people that were on America's Got Talent and American Idol and all kinds of stuff like that. So she's amazing, and she's the one who started this whole business, originally as just a small lesson studio up on Tremont in the basement of a jewelry, and then built it into this, so pretty cool. Yeah, so in addition to that and making records, I also manage content for a site called puremix.com. And what we do with PureMix is we basically try to teach people how to make better records online through video tutorials. And we do that by taking engineers who have done incredibly huge songs, and we fly out to their studios, we throw a bunch of cameras in front of them, and I sit behind the camera and ask them why about 7,500 times in the course of 8 hours. And they want to strangle me every time by the end of it. But we focus on not so much, while we have to get technical, we try to not focus on what was your EQ setting on that kick drum? It's more about what the engineer was thinking and why they would make those moves. So that's a lot of the reason that I annoy them by saying why a million times. So some of those guys have, one of those guys has amazing hair. Look at that hair. You know, they worked with everybody from Coldplay to Metallica to so on and so forth. And there's amazing. Guys came out and started telling people how to do what they did. And I couldn't get enough of that show when it was out. I watched it religiously, and my mom stayed up many nights watching it with me. And to get to meet them, first of all, and then get to work with them and basically study under them was like a dream come true for me. So that a lot of what I'm saying tonight has basically just things I'm ripping off from all of my mentors or whatever. So that's basically where that all begins. Okay, let me see if I can operate a slideshow. Cool. So we are talking about what makes a good mix, but I, in other places, have called this talk mixing with intention. And intention is the word that has come up in my conversations with these people more than any other word. We've done like countless live streams. We were doing like 2 a day at one point during COVID. It was crazy. But what ever talked about was that was my intention, or this was the artist's intention. And that was sort of the word that kind of made a lot of shifts happen for me internally when it comes to mixing. So let me pull up a thing here. All right, so to start kind of off, like a lot of things that you'll hear people talk about when it comes to mixing, they'll kind of communicate in different words. Like, how many of you guys have heard like, oh, that sounds really warm, or that sounds muddy, or this sounds thin, or bright, or whatever, right? Like we use these general words, but they can kind of give you a picture of what the person's trying to communicate, from what they're hearing, but it's a little bit like dancing about architecture, right? So I'm going to try to unravel a little bit about what people mean from some of those things. So to start off, first day on the computer too. Hold on one sec. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to play two different mixes for you guys. And the first one is going to be from this lovely human being right here. So this is Billie Eilish, and this is a song that you guys have all heard. And when we listen to it, I want you guys to think about some of those words that I just mentioned. Like, is this mix bright? Is it dark? Is it gritty? Is it I don't know? Is it that? So, let's see here. Hold on, Keynote's taking over my thing. That's not Billy. Let's see. Let's kill this for a second. All right, so here's our first song.
Creeping around like no one knows. Think you're so criminal. Bruises on both my knees for you. Don't say thank you. Oh please, I do what I want when I'm wanting to. My soul so cynical. So you're a tough guy, like you're really rough guy. Just can't get enough guy. Just always so puff guy. I'm that bad type. I like it when you take control even. You got me some type of way. You choose to feel it this way. I do not know what to say. But I know I shouldn't think about it. Right there, and I'm like, damn, this ain't fair. Wake up with your girlfriend, yeah, 'cause I'm bored. You can hear it in the morning, yeah, like it's yours. I know it ain't right, but I don't care. Wake up with your girlfriend, yeah, 'cause I'm bored. This shit always happen to me. Why can't we just play for keeps? Practical.
Glenda saying shit in a song. So, all right, cool. So what are some differences you guys heard in those two mixes? Anybody? Yes?
I feel like with the Billy one, it's really hard for me to pull out the instruments in the background.
Yeah.
So it's like swampy almost or something, right?
Right, yeah.
But with Ariana's, you can hear it's crispy.
Right. Yeah, crispy. Crispy's good. Yes?
I feel like the vocals were a bit more present in the second mix, the Ariana Grande mix.
Yeah.
Where they were, I felt like there were points in the Billie Eilish mix where the vocals were almost kind of buried.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Any other ones?
I mean, the Billie Eilish mix, I think, really melts together really well in the kind of like lower mid area that it's sitting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just different from being able to get the clarity out of almost all instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like they were doing some sort of like resonance filtery thing on like the instrumentation.
Right.
word they on the song.
Yeah.
But I think it was in service to the song.
Right.
And it works really well. It also gets the instrumentation out of the way of the vocals, and she's like singing a little like breathier, so like picking up all that is a lot harder to do when you have like a bunch of drums just
Right.
going away in the background. So
Totally. Yeah. So like production choices too. Yeah. Awesome. Some things that I've heard about those mixes from, even for example, from some of the guys on Pure Mix, I've heard, or like if you guys are familiar with GearSpace, used to be Gear Sluts. It's like a message board for audio nerds to get on there and hate each other. It's great. It's a wonderful place. But, when those came out, I'd see things like, or hear things like, who mixed this Billie Eilish record? It sounds terrible. It sounds like they have pillows in their ears. Or like in contrast with the Ariana Grande one, it's like, that's like a free teeth cleaning. Like it's so bright that if you just like smile really good, you'll get your teeth cleaned off of it. So it's interesting because people will have reactions to these things and they'll say things like, oh, that's super dark, that's terrible, or like it's so bright, I can't listen to that, that's awful. Well, if I go back here to our wonderful artwork here. So the Billie Eilish mix is dark, okay? And Ariana Grande is really bright. So if you start looking at the artist aesthetic, if you put a ton of top end on that, suddenly it doesn't really feel like a horror movie anymore, right? Or if her vocals are super clear and everything is pristine and crystal clear, it doesn't have this like dark horror aesthetic of like, sort of the washed out, like whatever you call that filter that's around the side of it, I forget now, but yeah. And if you even go a step further with that, if we were to take a little bit of, this is Billie's video at the end here.
Get mad. I guess I'm pretty glad that you're alone. You said she's scared of me? I mean, I don't see what she sees, but maybe it's 'cause I'm wearing your cologne.
And that's the end of the song that actually has a bright hi-hat, and then Ariana. So some of the things that people might listen to in those mixes and have comments about are things that completely lend themselves to the artist's aesthetic. So the reframing of the question, what makes a good mix, is what is it good or bad if the person meant to do it? If it was done with intention, I think it's a good mix no matter what. To kind of answer that, that's the end of the talk. So cool. Yeah, so that's basically the intention thing. I think the great mixes are intentional and not formulaic. It's not about making the best auditory thing happen. It's about finding something that speaks to the artist's vision, to the song's vision, and then doing what we do as engineers and mixers to try and communicate those things. So for this talk, I do want to kind of shift this in the right direction too. I see some familiar faces that should probably be up here talking instead of me, other engineers that are very talented in the room. But how many of you guys are artists? Awesome. And how many of you guys are engineers? Sweet. Okay, cool. So kind of pretty even split here. So yeah, I'm asking so I can see if we're going to go in a technical direction or in an artistic direction. So we'll do a little bit of both. We're not going to talk about compressor ratios, I'm sorry. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is like, that's sort of, kind of zoomed out, looking at the whole forest, listening to a song as a whole, and just listening to the tonal shape of it, right? Let's go a little bit further into the forest and think about individual elements. So when artists receive a mix from an engineer, I haven't been in that position for a very long time, like 2 decades-ish since the last time somebody else made a record for me. So that feeling of getting a mix from an engineer, I try to imagine what that's like for an artist, and I would imagine sometimes it's kind of scary. It's probably a little exciting too. Anybody have feelings about that? Anybody want to talk about their feelings? So.
Yeah, it's like they're doing something that I don't know how to do really
Yeah.
well, but it often doesn't quite match like how I'm hearing it in my head or at practice or when we recorded it or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I have to go back and think like, well, why did they make all those decisions to change it?
Right.
Who knows whether it was actually like an intentional change?
Right.
Unless you talk about it.
Yeah, great point. And I think the thing I know for me as a mixer, when I'm working with somebody, the first thing I'm trying to do is find out what their aesthetic is. And I think that that's the first mark of a good, no matter if it's a producer, an engineer, or a mixer, or a mastering engineer, or whatever, somebody who tries to understand the artist and actually is paying attention to those sort of things is somebody that you want to latch onto, because that can be a hard thing to find if they're just, kind of going through the motions and they're like, look, man, I've done this 1,000 times. I've got the best drum samples. I'm going to slap it on everything or whatever, right? So, yeah, basically how to communicate that aesthetic to the people that you're working with is something I definitely want to cover, as well as for other engineers, like things that I've found to kind of help figure those things out. So in talking about stuff, going back and forth with an engineer, a lot of times you'll get to the revision stage, right? Like you'll get the mix back, and then either it's great and you just have a few things, or maybe you have more than a few things or whatever. But actually communicating to the engineer, like what are those revisions, and how do I tell them what it is that I'm hearing, or how do I even decide what it is that I'm hearing that I don't like about the mix, and being able to identify those things. So one thing that we always ask is, okay, is something too loud, right? Is the vocal too loud? Is the vocal too quiet? Is the guitar covering up the vocal? Is the bass muddy? Is it too loud? So in order to ask the question of, is it too loud, I think that you have to have a context to it. So you have to have something, is it too loud compared to what? Compared to what else in the mix? So I'm going to play another example for you here. And it's kind of hard. I know we're in a big live room with a PA, and everybody's sitting in weird positions and all that stuff. And after the talk, I'm going to have the songs playing in the control room. If anybody wants to, go in and listen on proper monitors and all that, you guys are welcome to hang. But I'm going to play a song for you that it's intense, but it's really good. So this is the Foo Fighters. And I want you to listen. We're going to listen to about 2 minutes of this one. And you're going to hear throughout the thing different vocal levels. There's a couple different vocal parts that'll be at different levels. This changes sections, and the vocal level changes with those sections. So try to focus in on that as much as you can in this listening environment, and then we're going to chat about it. So here we go. Oh, as you listen to the vocal level, specifically on this one, I want you to listen in the context of where is the snare drum. So is the vocal too loud or too quiet in comparison to what? So listen to other elements to pinpoint the vocal off of and try to internalize that. So here we go.
Yeah.
Settle down, Dave. So, cool. Okay, so did you guys, in this environment, were you able to kind of pinpoint some of the volume changes in the vocal and the relation? Whatever. I can tell you some things that I've observed from this too. So we have like the loud, crazy section, right? And you have like the super screamy vocals that are kind of like doubled and hard pan left and right. And then you have his main vocal that's right up the center. And that main vocal, to me, when I'm on good speakers and everything, it sounds like it's behind the snare drum a little bit. So instead of thinking like in terms of loudness, like is the snare loud, is the snare quiet, is the vocal quiet or whatever, I think in terms of front to back depth. So when I think of a fader, I'm not really thinking of it in terms of like, is something getting louder? I'm thinking in a three-dimensional image of, is it coming closer to me or moving further away? So that kind of thought alone, just thinking in terms of like depth, space, is pretty freeing from the is it too loud, is it too quiet question. So we have these changes where we have super loud screamy vocals, double pan left and right, and then the vocals happening a little bit behind the snare. In the chorus where it kind of cleans up and he gets to nice Dave for a second, he comes out in front of the snare. And it's a very pop vocal. You're obviously like supposed to hear the lyrics at that point. So volume difference between verse and chorus. Who the hell mixed this, right? His name's Daryl Thorpe. He's awesome. I've talked to him about this. It was an emotional decision that in that loud, screamy section, they wanted it to sound like they were a garage band that was like playing at 11 and the PA sucked and he had to scream to get over the guitars, right? And it adds this urgency of like, it's like so loud, so intense that his screaming and everything just builds into the emotion of it because you're kind of like leaning in to hear him and then you get blasted by these double vocals and then you're like trying to hear what he's saying again. If he was sitting in front of the snare drum or super loud, that whole section would have a different feeling because it wouldn't be hard to hear him. There wouldn't be exasperation in his voice. It wouldn't seem like a struggle in that section. Then we get to the nice pop clean chorus and he kind of steps out in front and it's like, okay, we can hear the lyrics. We're getting a break from like all of the craziness. Like he's out, he's clear. And then we go right back into intensity mode. So just a simple fader move of like, is the vocal too loud or too quiet? It's not about is the vocal too loud or too quiet. Is this mix decision serving the emotion of the song at this point? So I love that example because basically of that, like, I mean, who hasn't been in a garage playing in a rock band and you can't get your vocal up, right? So.
Now, are those fader moves or those compression moves?
It could be either, right? Like, yeah, it could be, it can even be EQ as well, or saturation. Yeah, just different things to kind of like hide that vocal in a different way.
It's easy to use compression to move forward and back.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it feels very squeezed and like, it's very saturated and everything like that in that verse section. So yeah, main point of that is reframing the question, is something too loud, to what's its role? What's it supposed to be doing? If we think about live performance for a second, you think about when you see a really, really great band doing a show, like usually like a pro level show, and you see that the band has great stage presence. A lot of times, those bands, when they rehearse their shows, like in garage situations, we're usually like standing in a circle and all facing each other, right? We're not really preparing a performance, we're preparing the music to sound as good. Who would have thought that was important? But a lot of times for tour performances, they're rehearsing everything from, it's obviously the music, but they're also rehearsing like, okay, here in post-chorus 2, you're gonna step to the front of the stage because you're playing the main melody line. And when you do that, the rest of the band's gonna take a step back on the stage and we're all gonna shift our focus over to you visually. When we shift our focus to you, the audience knows that we're supposed to be looking at that player. So it's a lot of choreographed movements in terms of like, what is the focal point of the song? And we can think of mixing in the same way. If you have a guitar solo and that guitar solo is buried, doesn't feel good. Like typically if, the music is telling you this is supposed to be the focal element right now. And if the mix isn't reflecting that, it's kind of like going to see a local band that looks unsure of themselves on stage and the guitar player is playing a solo, but he's standing back behind the drum set because he's nervous, right? Like that's, as an audience member, that cues you off to, okay, these people might be starting out or he's uncomfortable on stage and I'm here to be entertained. I want 15 bucks at the door, all of that stuff. So thinking of like your mix in terms of what is this visually, supposed to be representing, and then trying to make elements, kind of go along with that. So that's is something too loud, is something too quiet? Look for context around other instruments, and then ask yourself, what is the role of this particular element in the mix? So that's 2 questions with that. And the next thing I would go to about individual elements would be maybe tonally, stuff with tone. So is something too bright or too dark? Before I reach for an EQ, a compressor, anything, again, the question is, what is the role of this instrument? And when trying to decide, say, the tonality of it, bright, dark, do I need to EQ this or not, I'm listening for other cues around it, right? So I love, a lot of times when I'm starting out a mix, I think about what's happening up the center of the mix. Most pop records, you will have, right up the center, you'll have kick drum, snare drum, you'll have bass guitar, lead vocal. Those are typically like always gonna live right up the middle. There's obviously artistic reasons to change that, and that's okay, but usually when I'm starting a mix, I'll kind of bring those elements up first and set their levels in accordance with each other. So if it's a Foo Fighters thing in the angry section, the vocal might be a little bit behind the snare, so on and so forth. The next thing is like, how bright should something be? Let's say I have everything in the mix and I'm working on the tonality of the vocal. I'm deciding if it's going to be a bright, clear vocal or a dark vocal or whatever. What determines the overall shape of that vocal is everything else in the mix. So if everything else is bright, that vocal is going to have to be brighter to get above everything else if I decide it has to be a bright vocal. Or I could decide everything else is too bright and I just need to bring that down. But I'm not listening to the vocal by itself as an element and saying, oh, this vocal is dark, I need to brighten it up. I'm listening to everybody around it and saying, okay, the snare drum has a lot of top end in it. So in order for me to push that vocal in front of the snare drum, if that's my decision, I'm going to have to maybe tame that snare drum down a little bit. After making those decisions, you can focus on the one that you're kind of counting on. So deciding what is the role of the element, where is it supposed to live, and then listening to everybody around it and deciding how to kind of place those in place. So I'm going to show you an image that if any of you guys went to recording school, you're probably familiar with. The most useless image on the face of the earth. This guy. How many of you guys have seen this before? So, cool. So I both love and hate this. I'm kind of joking, but it's interesting because it does show that concept of, okay, front to back mixing. Like, it's showing the volume level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who knows what those are? But it's volume level 1 through 6. And it's showing, obviously, like, if 6 is quieter, even though it's higher than 1, and forget about that. If that's the back or whatever, then we're thinking about that. Nobody ever gets to 1, by the way. You never get to 1. The farthest you come is like 2. Your shadow leaks into 2 a little bit. But I do love that it kind of shows the depth thing. The other thing I want to say about this is if you guys scroll Instagram and you have any sort of audio engineering stuff in your feed, you've seen way worse stuff than this. So beware of what you see online. But yeah, so you guys have seen this. It illustrates the concept of front to back, but it's also a crazy one. But don't worry, it gets crazier. The hell is that? So we have apparently 3 saxophones, 3 trombones, 3 trumpets. The vocal is way past level 1 at this point. We don't even see the volume levels on the bottom. The kick drum's a little bit off to the left. Anyway, yeah, the front to back thing, I don't think that there's, basically like a static version of this that makes sense for every concept. That's sort of my main issue with images like this, is it's like, this is how your mix presentation should be, right? And that puts it in the science world and completely takes out any artistic interpretation of it, right? So while I think it's important to be able to listen to music and try to focus in on the concept of depth and space and, left to right, front to back, top to bottom, those are all really great things to be able to kind of decide what your canvas is. But never totally trust the orange blobs and all of that. Unless, of course, you're doing hip hop. Now, hip hop has no vocals, if you'll notice this too, but all right, that's the end of that. So, cool. Yeah, those are classic images. Okay, so what I want to do in terms of this whole like bright, dark, muddy, like do I need to add EQs to something, all of that. I'm going to have Matt turn my microphone off. If you guys are watching on live stream, my microphone's going to stay on, so you'll hear me the same way. The point of this is I'm going to walk around the room and talk and have you guys listen to my voice and how it changes as I move in position around the room in relation to what you are. So nobody look at me because I'm going to get uncomfortable. So just stare straight ahead. And then, yeah, guys on the live stream, you'll have to imagine this, but cool. All right, so with my microphone off, I'm just going to changing as I get closer to you or further away from you. If you're still looking straight ahead and not cheating, it should sound way different with me behind you. And tonally, what do you hear happening? Just kind of focus in on that. Is it thinner? Is it darker? Is it more reverberant? Is it more present? If I get really, really close, is it like it would be in a lead vocal on a record? Or if I go far away, is it just top end? Is it all muddy? If I'm off axis from you, does that change things? If I'm left or right? So this is also a really fun thing to do if you're stuck at a dinner that you don't want to be at and the conversation's really boring. You just kind of start focusing on what does this room sound like, right? Am I hearing a lot of audio, like plates clanking? Where are the plates at? If I don't change my head and find out where those plates are, what auditory cues tell me where those things are? So might be something I do a lot when I'm in conversations. Not with anybody in this room, but yeah. So real world cues, right? So trying to pick up on what actually happens in the real world and how can I take that information and bring it into what I do when I'm making a record. So what are some of the things that you guys noticed as I moved around? Get on the spot.
As you got closer to the bass, your bass got bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
With you up there compared to where I'm sitting, it's a lot more overtone and lower build-up, less fidelity in the mids and the highs.
Yeah. Awesome. That guy's a good engineer, by the way. I'm gonna brag on you, dude. This guy worked on Taylor Swift's Midnights. This is John. He's amazing. Thank you for being here. Yeah.
A round of applause for Mark Abrams.
Stop it. Awesome.
He won a Grammy.
Yes, he did. You guys. All right, what else in the voice?
You were all the way in the back. It was mostly your like upper mids and highs, like a lot of clarity. But I felt like I was also getting a better clarity of the low end too, and like kind of just the mids cut out.
Yeah,
And that depended on which way you were facing.
yeah,
When you were
I couldn't tell
back,
which,
facing this way,
right,
nice and crisp.
yeah,
I couldn't tell which side of the room you were on behind me.
yeah. Cool. You'd love Atmos. Yeah, so yeah, if I was off axis, like you're saying, if I, whether I'm here, or if I'm talking like this, my voice changes. So in the context of record making, thinking about those sort of like real world auditory, acoustic word things, how do you bring that into mixing and make something more of what you want? So for example, let's say that you have a vocal and you want something to happen to that vocal where, let's see, how many of you guys have seen like a Mission Impossible movie or something like that? So they'll do a thing in those movies where, Tom Cruise with his perfect genes will be like, he'll have a harness on, and all of a sudden, like, something will blow up in front of him, and they'll use a giant thing to pull him backwards, and he'll get sucked away. So let's say you want to make that happen in a mix with a vocal. What are some things that you might do? No reverb allowed. Yeah.
Panning, compression,
Yeah.
depending on what.
Yeah. Maybe some EQ too. Like if Matt, turn off my mic again really quick. So listen to the top end of my voice. So as I get close to you and as I move far away from you, listen to the higher frequencies in my voice. Are they more pronounced? Are they less pronounced? The very top frequencies of it. Is there a lot of treble? Is there not much treble? Do I have sibilants? Do you hear my S-ing sounds clearly? Those kinds of things. So,
Much more pronounced closer.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if I want to make a vocal sound like Tom Cruise being exploded, many things that we can do. So I'm going to play another example. This is from the guy with the great hair, which I don't think he's watching, but if he is, he just had the #1 most song streamed in the world on Spotify in a single day 2 weeks ago with Bad Bunny. It's pretty rad. So he mixed this one. This is a band from Brooklyn. Their name is Tomboy. If you look it up, it's TMBOY. They're from Brooklyn, and if you're from Brooklyn, you drop the first vowel in every word that you do. It's just, that's a thing. All right, cool. So here we go. This is called Zephyr, and I'm gonna play a bit of this one as well. We're looking for, there's going to be a couple scene changes. So I love this concept too, like the concept of a scene change. If you think of it in film, like if we're going from an interior to an exterior, right? Like a total visual scene change happening. If you move from, say, a verse to a chorus or from a chorus to a bridge, is that also a concept that we can use in music? Can we do complete tonal shifts that take you to somewhere completely different if you're just closing your eyes and listening to what's happening? So I'm going to start about 2 minutes in, I believe. Let me check my notes. Professional. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll listen to about 2 minutes of this. So yeah, as we go to the different sections, listen to some of the tonal shifts. And there's going to be a section where the Tom Cruise thing happens. Here we go.
What if I am so small? I am nothing now. I feel nothing now. What if I am so small? I am nothing now. I feel nothing now. Oh, it means that much to me. Oh, it means that much to me. What if I am so small? I am nothing now. I feel nothing now. When it's cold outside, when it's hard to see, when doubts weigh aside, what's left of me? What if I am so small? I am nothing now. I feel nothing now. What if I am so small? I am nothing now. I feel nothing now. Whoa, it means that much to me. Whoa, it means that much to me. What if I am so small?
Okay, so a lot of things happening there. First of all, it's a Tom Cruise thing, as I like to call it. So she kind of goes from being the center focus to hitting her big note, and as she's hitting her big note, she gets the ripcord pulled on her. She's thrown to the back of the room. She's swirling around like, Dorothy or something, and she's behind the very clear lead vocal that takes over. So she went from being the big note to being the smallest thing in the mix. The lyrics in that chorus are, "What if I'm so small, I feel nothing now, I believe," right? So if we're listening to the context of the song, like what's happening in each section of the song lyrically, that's a mix decision that was supported. I got to sit in on that mix, and when it came in the tracks, that wasn't a production decision that was there. So that came from the mixer listening to the lyrics, listening to the singer, deciding like, okay, you've got this section, you've got this section. They knew that they wanted the section before to be very dry so that the chorus would feel huge, but they didn't know what to do with the big note, right? So in a normal pop thing, it would have just stayed up front and it would have been a big note and like, oh, listen to the, amazing vocal singing, But they took the most emotional performance in the song and they threw it off in the back in order to sort of like support the lyric. So I'm gonna go from that section right before the chorus, and a couple things to listen for this time. The section before it gets big, I want you to listen how everything dries up and it's really tight. It almost sounds like a demo. It almost sounds bad because there's nothing on the vocal. There's no fancy delay tricks, there's nothing. It's a vocal, it's right up front, and it's dry. We go into the next section, everything gets big, but it gets big because we know what dry and small feels like right before it. So these are mixed decisions that sort of support, like, how do we keep the momentum going and make the song go bigger into it. So listen to the lyrics and then listen to how the mix supports that. This is the chorus before it.
I feel nothing now. What if I am so small? I am nothing now. I feel nothing now. Oh, it means that much to me. Oh, it means that much to me. What if I am so small? I am nothing now. I feel nothing now. When it's cold outside, when it's hard to see, when doubts raise.
So I'm going to interrupt in this. There's one other element that makes her feel extremely close to us that just happened. Did anybody catch it? Her vocal does, yeah. There's one other track of vocals happening in the track, and it's way back. Yeah. So how do we know what loud is? How do we know what quiet is? How do we know what near is and what far is? Yeah, exactly, yeah. So contrast, right? Like we have to have something that tells us where's the back wall? Where's the back of the room? Or what is the loudest point that we can be at? Where are we operating within, right? Like nothing is loud if everything's loud. Or if you just had a vocal and it had a singular volume, it's just a volume, right? So one more time in this section, the super dry section, there's one single vocal that's happening in the background telling you exactly where that back wall is, which makes that lead vocal that's super dry feel that much closer to you. And again, this works better on speakers, so I would definitely recommend checking it out on speakers too. But
When it's cold outside, when it's hard to see, when doubts wayside, what's left of me? What if I am so small? I
what if I'm so small, I'm nothing now? They take the biggest note in the song and they make her tiny, right? Pretty awesome. That's something that I love that song for that very specific reason. It's like that is a masterclass in depth in listening to the artist and making your mix decisions, not about how do I make the best mix, about what's happening in the song and how do I re-support the lyric and try to add to the story with that. Those are obviously all things that can come as far back as the initial writing of the song, and these can be production decisions as well, but it's something that can carry through all the way kind of through to the end. And when artists in the room when they get a mix, these are sort of the things that you can ask yourself is this representation of my song what I meant? Is it what I meant to convey? Is it helping tell that story? Or is it trying to use the best drum samples on earth with the fanciest compressors with the brand new plugins that were $10 off last week or whatever, right? None of that stuff matters. And the other thing I love to kind of say, this is like old man soapbox thing here, but there's a lot of gear in that room right now and it's not doing anything, right? Like if we go kick it with a stick, it's not gonna do anything. None of this stuff wants to help you make music. It's all internal, and it all comes back to intention and deciding what your intent is and how you want to communicate that. So lyrics and all that stuff. That said, compressors are really cool. I just got a new one. Awesome. So a couple of the things that you can kind of do with that. EQ can work both in, you can think of it as tonal balancing. Is something muddy? Is it dark? Or you can think of it as, is it dark? Is it close to me? Is it present? Is it super clear? Do I want it to be high fidelity? Or do I want it to just be kind of normal and it's sitting in the middle of the room versus if I'm right here talking to you? You can think of it that way. Another thing for engineers that we can think of too is transient response, right? So we all know about compressors and transients and attack times and all that, but it's the sharp beginning of the clap or whatever, right? It's how sharp is that initial hit going to be. If it's a pillowy, that's a much different feel than a sharp transient. And we can use those things, like a sharp transient is going to feel like it's immediate, it's closer, it's loud. A more pillowy thing is going to feel a little bit further away. If you think about different tones in snare drums and the different intensities that those can make you feel, right? You've got a high tune snare that's got a big attack, that says a certain word. A really low tune snare that's kind of big and beefy and pillowy is a completely different emotion. So those are also kind of things that we can think about with it. Engineers, like what you were saying, compression, right? Like we use compression to shape those things, and do we want them to be very attacky and spitty, or do we want them to be round and kind of, mellow or whatever? Those are all tools, but before reaching for the knobs, it's important to think of what is this supposed to feel like? If you've got like, say a beautiful like country ballad or a Ray LaMontagne kind of thing or something like that, you're not necessarily, for my engineer friends in here, you're not going to take a Blue Stripe 1176 and get the super spitty like big consonant thing happening at the beginning of it. You might reach for a Very-Mu that's got a slower pillowy thing on it, and what's the song trying to do? What's this performance trying to do? And what are the tools that help me kind of get there with that? A thing that we constantly think of too is like, let's say the bass is too big or something's covering something else up. Common term for that is masking. So if you think of, say like a big boomy acoustic guitar and it's just kind of like eating up the track, a lot of times that's because it's doing what's called masking, and there's maybe a lot of low mid in it and it's covering up other things in the mix. So as artists, if you're listening to a track and you're like, I can't really hear what's going on, God, that guitar sounds loud. It might be that the guitar is not loud. It might be that the guitar is tonally imbalanced and it's covering up other things in that. So you might start listening to like, if I put on my most familiar headphones, or if I take it in my car or listen on the speakers I'm used to, it sounds like things are muddy. Okay, what is it that's muddy? Is it the bottom end of that acoustic guitar? I wouldn't tell the engineer to turn it down. I'd say, hey, it sounds like that acoustic is kind of covering things up. Is there something going on that's making this whole thing kind of boomy? Just kind of like really narrowing in what it is that you're hearing. If you tell somebody this thing's too loud, they could be on hour 10 of the mix and be done with you and just be like, oh, okay, I'll turn the fader down, whatever. So it's up to artists to kind of, say like, okay, I think it's too loud because of the X, or whatever. So it can be helpful. All right, let's move on. So we're gonna do a little bit more of a zoom out thing, and then we got one more section on monitoring stuff that'll move super quick, and then we'll do some Q&A if you guys want to. Okay, so going back out of the trees for a second, we're gonna listen to some overall shapes of things. I'm gonna play 2 more rock mixes for you. And I want you to listen to the overall shape of these 2 songs. These are both, I think, amazing sounding records, but let's check out the differences. So here's one that everybody probably knows.
I don't mind letting you down easy, but just give it time. If it don't hurt now, but just wait a while. You're not the big fish in the pond no more. You were what they're feeding on. So what are you gonna do when the world don't orbit around you? So what are you gonna do when the world don't orbit around you? Ain't it fun living in the real world? It ain't good being all alone. Where you from? You might be the one who's running things.
All right, song number 2.
We suffer and dream and ride on the steel blade. One more exit home. I'm relying on your senses. My equilibrium is failing. The hole in me rips a hole in you.
One more time on Paramore.
What are you gonna do when the world don't orbit around you? So what are you gonna do when
One more time on Failure is the band.
From your steel hide, 1,000 ways to lose your purpose.
Okay, broad shape, tonally. What's different? Anybody?
The first one seems warmer and a little brighter in regards to the vocals and even the instrumental.
Yeah.
The second one seems a lot more, I don't wanna, it's not condensed, but it definitely sounds grungier, grittier, and it seems like things are blending in a lot more, where I can hear everything else standing out on the Paramore hits.
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Anybody else?
Definitely a lot less elements in the Failure mix compared to like the Paramore. I didn't even realize that there was like synth in that Paramore song.
Right.
But yeah, the Failure
Synth
one is
grooves.
definitely a lot more just like, I guess straightforward. Not even saying that kind of has weird implications, but just less elements.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
And the Paramore, I want to lean in and listen. The way everything's kind of just blending really nice together.
Yeah.
Whereas the Failure, when it puff out my chest would struggle a little bit.
Yeah. Nice.
Be like,
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna play them one more time, and I'll just do a quick snippet. But also listen to the bottom end. Again, we're on a PA in a big room and all that stuff. But listen to the bottom.
ain't it fun living in the real world? Ain't it good being all alone?
More bass? Big bass. Big bottom on that one. And Paramore isn't known for being that much of a, I mean, they're definitely not as heavy as Failure, but I wouldn't call them a weak band, you know? So I hear in Ain't It Fun a whole lot of mid-range focus. Now here's a cool thing. The singer of Failure mixed that Paramore song. It's super freaking rad. So, yeah, his name is Ken Andrews for anybody who wants to look him up. That guy's an amazing, amazing mixer. I can't, like, the Ain't It Fun mix is, it's also one of my references for a mix completely supporting the groove of a song. There's nothing that's pushing against the time and the pocket in the band in that mix versus you know, some other things that you might hear. Like every mix decision I feel like was in support of that pocket. Something that might have happened, the reason I point out the bottom end on the Failure one, it's not that it's fighting the groove or anything like that, but think about if you took the bottom end of the kick drum and the bottom end of the bass on the Paramore one and you made those bloated. If you cranked them up. Pause that, back up for a second. Think about the last show that you went to where the engineer was in love with his brand new subwoofers that he bought and he cranked the hell out of them. And there was a tight funk band playing on stage. I hate that. If what happens, like when you crank all that sub energy, it takes a really long time for those things to decay, right? Like you have all these big booming low end things happening, moving around. You're actually extending the musical note of what the band is doing. So you're taking that drummer, his kick drum, and you're saying, that's awesome that you're playing, you know, tight eighth notes on there and you're trying to like really establish the pocket and cut off with the snare and like everything's all locked in, the bass player's playing nice and tight. I'm gonna take the bottom end of that and I'm gonna make everything a half note, right? Not cool. So same thing can happen in record mixing, but think about that the next time you go to a show at the Newport. I mean, the next time that you go to a show and it doesn't feel like things are locking in or whatever. Check out the bottom end of what's going on inside of it and think about that. Live sound's a very, very hard thing. I'll back off on my comment a little bit. The Newport's a very hard room to mix, yada, yada, yada. But it's something to think about, like the EQ decisions that we make, the compression moves that we make, all of these things are musical values. If we think about, for my engineer friends, if you think about a compressor when you're setting attack time and release time, let's say that you decide that you really want to have a very, very long snare and you're going to do that thing by smashing the heck out of it and letting the tail end just go, right? It's kind of the same thing. Sorry, man, that was me. Matt's like, feedback. You're essentially, again, deciding like, I'm going to change the note value of that snare drum by doing a move with my compressor. front, sides, and back, or whatever. So there's a general rule if you're taking notes and want a nerdy thing. General rule is 33% of the way back into the room. It places you in a pretty good position between two modes that I won't get too nerdy with, but there's tons of information about this stuff online. But the quick fix is get it, equidistant from the side walls and from the front wall. Next one would be just absorption, right? So this is something that you can do really easily without spending a lot of money. You could literally take rugs. You could like a rug like this, and you could just slap it up on your wall. It'll be great. Your significant other will love you for doing it. It'll look beautiful. But if you kind of cover what's called the first reflection points on the walls, that'll help clean things up a whole lot. Even if you only have a blanket or something to do it, it's better than nothing. A good way to find where to place treatment is something called the mirror trick. You have a friend grab a mirror and go on the wall. You sit in your listening position, and you watch for them to move the mirror. And as soon as you see the speaker in the mirror, that's where to put some treatment. So that'll show you, that'd be the first point that it would reflect and come back to your ear. So you can kind of do that across the front walls, if you will. Next one that I discovered way later than I should have is covering up ceiling reflections. It's amazing what happens when you put, it's called the cloud. If you put some treatment above your head and you stop what's coming down here, everything that I'm talking about with front to back depth instantly becomes clear. To me, that's my perception of what happens. So my room is, where I mix out of at home, is pretty much all absorption. This is where it kind of gets into taste stuff. So absorption versus what's called diffusion, which is something that'll reflect sound back at you, but it'll do it in a scattered way versus a direct way. So I personally love absorption because I just want to hear the speakers. I don't want to hear my room. It doesn't bother me that my room is 20 dB quieter than the rest of my house. I kind of like it. So this room in here, we have a bit of a mix. When you go in there, you'll see we have columns on these windows. The windows were a choice aesthetically because we wanted to make music with other people in this room. So we wanted to have clear lines of sight from the booth all the way to the live room, and those columns are all removable. But they have both absorption and diffusion in them, where one part of it is a diffuser, the other part's an absorber, and it'll basically react with sound in different ways. And then we have a diffuser at the back of the room, so that's what those look like. And then the panels are all absorption inside that room. So those are my quick 2-minute tips for monitor placement and stuff. There's a lot of that stuff out there on the internet, but you don't have to spend a ton of money. If you are on a budget, you can get 2x4s at Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. Cut them up. There's something called Rockwool, Safe and Sound Rockwool. It's fairly cheap to buy a giant pack of that stuff, and you can make several panels out of it. And just doing a little bit of that will completely change how you're hearing things. The most important thing that you could do if you're working on mixing or just really want to have a great sounding room, most important thing, bar none, acoustic treatment. It's not, don't go and buy a monitor correction system to tune your monitors before you take care of the room. So also more important than any compressor that you'll buy. But I love compressors. So, awesome. That is pretty much the gist of it. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to do those. We can get nerdy if you want to get nerdy. I tried to stay kind of service level because I don't want to talk about pre-delays for people who get bored. But yeah. Any questions? Yes?
One thing I've been struggling a lot with my mixing lately is what I call it sounded good last night syndrome.
Yeah.
Where you're working on something and you work on it for 4 or 5 hours, and for whatever reason it sounds different when you've been working on it for a while, and then you wake up and it just the mix is off.
Yeah.
What it sounded like last night. And I mean, you and a lot of mixers will work on a ton of projects, and you have tight turnarounds and things like that. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
How do you keep as an objective of an ear on your mixes as possible?
That's a great question. I'm actually really big point that I didn't say. Very useful tip. So one thing that I do all day long, no matter how much I want to turn it up, shout out to my assistant Madeline Gerald's back there, so she's going to call me a liar after I say this, but because she knows the truth. But I try to not change my monitor level all day long. So I am never like, even when I get really into it, I try to have restraint on this. Sometimes I probably forget and go for it anyway, but I try to set my monitor level at the beginning of the day. For anybody counting, I have a, I think it's just called SPL meter on my phone is the app. I think it's like $1 or $2 or something like that. I have that sitting on a little stand on the side of my desk, and I turn my monitors up when I'm at the loudest section of the song at the beginning of the mix. I'll kind of turn it up until I'm around like 80. And this is usually after I've gotten my basic balance kind of thing going. When I've kind of figured out like, okay, I know I'm going to be living around here. Let me get the monitor set. I'll put it around 80. You'll hear numbers everywhere. This is kind of a little bit of a preference thing. Some people, there's a curve called the Fletcher-Munson curve that says we hear frequencies equally at 85 dB. I found 80 is just comfortable for me. It doesn't feel too loud, and I can work all day at that volume, and it's cool for me. It took a lot of restraint when I started doing this at the beginning, but once I set the monitor level, I don't touch it. Because as I would get excited and crank it up, now I'm hearing more bottom end in the kick drum than I was 2 seconds ago. And I'm like, oh God, there's too much bottom in the kick drum, and I'll carve it out. And then I'll be like, oh man, this is so loud, I'm gonna turn it down now. I need to turn up the bass, or whatever, So just you're changing your perception of the thing all day long while you're turning the monitors up and down. So I'll keep it quiet but reasonable, and I'll leave it parked there the entire day, as I'm mixing or whatever. And the thing about coming back the next day, I always try to tell everybody, if I'm mixing a song on this day, you won't get it until this day. And a lot of times I'll kind of extend that out so they can be like, oh my God, you already got it done. Yeah, sweet. Also, shout out to Madeline for taking care of that. Yeah, I'll always try to listen in the morning. I find that first listen in the morning is the most important listen of the entire day. Way more important than the second listen, even, like as soon as that first listen's over, like every single one after that, it's kind of like if you think about like an old VHS tape or a cassette or anything that you would play again, or, you just generation after generation, every single time I trust myself a little bit less, right? But that first time that I sit down, if I can like focus in and not just like, sit down, hit play, start getting a drink over here, and I'm like bending down, not listening to my speakers, and maybe I'm like answering something over here on my computer while the thing's playing. Like the first listen is, I'm turning off the TV screen, I'm placing my monitors at that level, I'm hitting play, and I've got my phone or a notepad in front of me, and I'm writing down every single thing that I hear that distracts me from listening to the song. I'm not listening to like, do I like the sound of the kick drum? Do I like the sound of the snare drum? I'm just trying to listen to the song and for anything that pulls me out. So in movies, we have a thing called suspension of disbelief, right? Like when you're watching a movie and you see like Jaws is like swimming through the ocean, and then there's like a leg kicking behind him or something from the guy who's like in the puppet suit. Immediately you're like, I'm not scared anymore. This is a movie or whatever. Like disbelief suspended or whatever, right? So in mixing, it's the same thing for me when I sit down for that first listen. What pulls me out of the song? What pulls me away from the mix? And if it's, the vocal's too loud there. Vocal too loud, verse 1. Stop thinking about it. Next, just go back to listening. Shaker comes in too hot in chorus 1. Shaker down chorus 1. Keep going. And then I'll go back for the second. I'll go back, I'll make those changes. I'll go back, listen to the second pass, and I'll do that over and over again until I have nothing down on the piece of paper on the thing. That's the only way that I can tell you to fix, the syndrome of like, this sounded so good last night, or whatever is, you could be listening at a different volume. Your ears might have been tired from working all day long. There's a lot of variables in there. Yeah. You might have had cornflakes for breakfast and all that too, so, yeah. Yes?
Have you ever used pink noise or green noise in between mixes to help with ear fatigue?
No.
That's pretty good.
That's a good idea. Yeah. That sounds like a really good idea, actually. Yeah. Green noise. What's green noise?
More earth tone.
Cool. Nice.
Just a little different frequency.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to try that. Thank you. Yes?
You recently mixed and
Yes.
Whenever you're in your mixing and mastering process, when do you do that change? Are you mastering along the way, or do you like mix into a limiter? Because you know, there's a lot of dynamics in your work.
Yeah.
What kind is that process for you?
Yeah, so I always separate the two. I do mix into a limiter when I'm mixing. That is part of the sound for me. So yeah, that's an interesting one because you'll hear like a lot of things between when you send a song to mastering. Do you take the limiter off? Do you take all your mix processing off and just say, okay, here you go? I like to definitely in the school of like I want to know what the thing's going to sound like while I'm mixing it, right? So for me, the limiter, I'm never like pushing too hard into it. It's catching peaks and stuff like that. So if there's like an errant snare drum that escapes or whatever, the limiter is like, no, stop or whatever. That stuff is like a final polish on it for me, and I consider that the final thing. I had a mastering engineer one time. The client like wanted to use his friend for mastering, and I sent him the mix, and he sent me an email, and he's like, "Hey man, I was just getting prepped for tomorrow. I loaded the mix into the DAW, and I noticed that it had what was it? It had was it intersample peaks? I think it was intersample peaks or something like that." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "If you could just take your limiter off of there and send it back to me, that'd be great." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "I don't hear clipping on my side. You sure it wasn't like cranked up in your DAW or something like that?" And he goes, "Well, actually, I didn't even listen to it yet. I was on the phone and I just loaded it into the DAW and I looked at the waveform and saw that there were peaks." And I was like, "I will not take the limiter off." You're not even listening to the song and you're requesting a mix change, right? The mix changes as soon as I take that limiter off. I also told the client to use a different mastering engineer. So I am mixing into a limiter, and I consider that part of the sound. As far as like when I do the switchover, I don't master while I'm mixing because I do believe that there's an artistic step there with mastering. I think that especially just like coming back the next day and listening to the song fresh for the first time, it's the same thing with mastering for me. So I will want space between when I mixed it and if I have to do the mastering when I master it. I do much prefer having a mastering engineer on something, just like somebody that I trust. Like, I would love to send you something, you know, like I would trust your musical decisions on something, and that would give a fresh perspective of like, I'm in the same room and you might hear something different than I do, or you might have a different take on something, or you might catch something that I'm not catching, you know. So I love working with another set of ears that's trusted and somebody who's a good part of the team, but if I'm doing it, I'll try to take space from it, and I'll approach it sitting down like I didn't mix it, and I'll try to objectively, just like, you know, listening for mix revisions, I'll try to listen to it as though I've, you know, never heard it. What pulls me out of this? But now I'm not thinking about something like, is the vocal too loud? I'm thinking that's done because the client signed off on it. And now I'm listening for like, oh man, like the low mids really jump out when they hit the A every time in the chorus, so maybe I want to automate an EQ move, something like that. But I'll need the space to be able to listen to it that way and like change who I am internally. A little schizophrenia, it's fine. So, yes?
What are your favorite locations to check mixes, like a car or
Yeah.
bedroom headphones? I assume it's a mix.
Dude, this one, I'm like embarrassed and not embarrassed to say this at the same time. Apple AirPod Pro 2s are my favorite way to check a mix. Yeah, not the pros, the pros. So, no, it was the pros before that, and they're fine too. But the two reasons. One, those things for some reason, like they tell me when something is jumping out, like if it's a low mid thing or like something in EQ or even like a balance thing. I can hear it really quick on those. They also suck at 3K. Like it's really, really pointed and piercing to me. So I can tell right away if I'm missing something in that range, and I can take care of it there. But having that like close headphone picture, I work on monitors other than that, like all the time. I don't do like headphones while I'm mixing. I make my mix on my monitors and make it fun. And then at the last stage, I'll pop in AirPods and I'll kind of listen for any like final tweaks on it. It's not that I enjoy doing that because I actually have to force myself before sending a mix out because I just want to be done sometimes. I'm like, I'm going to send it to the client. I feel good about it. It feels great. Like I'm sending it. Like, nope, Mark, check it on the AirPods. And every time I do, I'm always happier than if I don't do it. So it's become a thing where I like have to slap my own wrist and be like, nope, just take the 5 minutes, listen on AirPods, see if there's anything that you're missing or whatever. Outside of that, my car, However, my car and most cars that I know of suck, right? I know the way that my car sucks though, so I can tell if something is wrong. Like every car manufacturer thinks that we need a whole lot of low end or whatever. Yeah, anyway. So, yeah, does that kind of answer it? Yeah, sweet. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
Do you have a certain loudness that you shoot for when you bounce a mix?
So not a loudness number, and this has been an interesting thing, obviously, like with streaming and with the loudness wars and all that stuff, hot topic, right? I have someone who I'll call a friend that he loves, I think he's just trolling me most of the time, but he'll call me and be like, dude, I got this mix up to -2 LUFS. I'm like, what are you? You're playing Call of Duty. Like you're playing video games. You're clearly not listening to it. But so the LUFS thing. So for anybody who's kind of uninitiated in this, streaming stuff, it was supposedly going to be the end of the streaming wars because they turn everything down to what's called -14 LUFS. So loudness units over time, basically. There's two versions of that number. There's loudness integrated. LUFS integrated level, and then there's a LUFS, it's short term, I don't know, LUFS short term, we'll just go with that. So one of them is a longer period of time, one of them is a shorter period of time. The longer period of time is what the streaming platforms are looking at, and let's say that you deliver a mix, in CD days, it would have been like, most things were mastered around like -9, -8-ish, broadly speaking or whatever, you guys can correct me too, but now if you send a mix into distribution, Spotify gets that mix, they read it, and they say, this is mastered at -9 LUFS. Turn it down 5 dB. And then it plays at the same level as everybody else's mix. That's what they thought would end the loudness wars, right? They thought that was going to be the end of it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that they turn it down. And for a long time, I was on team like, don't mix past -14. You're just giving up dynamic range. Why would you do that? Or whatever, right? Then somebody said to me, what happens tomorrow when they decide to change the level? Sure enough, YouTube decided -13's the number. So now the mix sounds different on YouTube versus Spotify. And then Apple was like, -12, right? So nobody agrees on what the number is. And then what happens is you were making your record at a specific point in time for a piece of technology that was available at that moment. That's like if we, did something crazy like made music for vinyl records back in the day, and then we played it today on modern systems. It sounds different, right, than what would happen. So my philosophy on that now is make the best record that you can make, and don't worry about the number of it. Just make it sound as good as it can possibly be, and to hell with them if they turn it up or down, or who cares? You can't control it. It's not in your control, so let it go. What I will say about this is there's a number that I do care about a little bit more, but just in terms of like, okay, I hear what I think I'm hearing. That number is the dynamic range of it. And that is the only number that I think you should pay attention to, because that transcends whether or not they turn your mix up, turn your mix down, whatever. That dynamic range is the average, just change that's happening throughout your music. Pure mix, I'll show you guys. I'll talk while I'm pulling this up here. But we have a meter, and there's other meters that have a similar number here, so I'm not totally being a salesperson. But we have one that's called decibel, and it has a really good representation of what you're seeing. Oops, hold on. It's not like I work there. Process.audio. There we go. Okay, this is our plugin company, and we have this meter. Where are you, pointer? This is the only way you'll make good mixes.
1 meter to roll.
Yes, perfect. Okay, let me find a good representation of that thing. All right, I don't know where the screenshots are. Here's Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Let's see. Kind of that one. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So this meter shows you your integrated LUFS right here. That's this guy moving around. And then we have a thing that we call true dyne. So this true dyne number, that doesn't change no matter what the output of, say, my limiter is. So if I've done my mix, I'm going into a limiter, I've done my specific squeeze. If I do what Spotify is going to do, and I take, let's say I take my mix from, you know, -12 down to -14, that dynamic range number doesn't change. All it's doing is just, you know, Spotify is just turning your mix down, right? So it's not compressing my mix more. It's just literally clip gaining the thing down. So what I do care about is that dynamic number there. That's what I'll look at if I'm listening to something, you know, say I'm listening to mixes online and I'm like, that sounds really squeezed, or that sounds too squeezed, or something like that. Then I might be like, let me pull up decibel and just take a look at it. Oh, it's at -2. Hi, friend. Then I'll call him and be like, you're trolling me again. But that one, yeah, that number I care about, but it's also not like I'm watching it while I'm mixing either. This meter is pretty cool because you can actually like take an old iPad or your iPhone or something and you can make the meter appear on your device, which is kind of cool. So you could look at it all day. I don't do that because I don't want to. You know, I want to like make it feel good, and then that's something that I'll kind of check maybe toward the end. Just be like, am I getting enough squeeze on this? Like, am I, you know, I'm 6 hours into my mix. Am I hearing things correctly or whatever? I'll pull it up and I'll look at it. And sometimes I will, you know, look at that number and be like, ooh, I got to send this out to the client. They're going to pull it up against something on Spotify. I better jack this up a little bit, you know. And I will make a decision to do that if I think the client's going to get wet feet about something that's really dynamic or something like that. So yeah, hope that answers the question. What's that?
Your number for dynamic range?
For dynamic range, I know that I don't know if I have one. I land around 9 or 8. Like for something that's intense or like a pop mix or something like that, I think I land around 9 or 8. Usually after that, I'll start feeling like I'm hearing compression or start like feeling like things are, if anything, like they'll get too intense. You know, like if there's not any dynamic range in the thing and it's not moving, there's like, that has a feeling where it's like shoulders up to the ears and it's really intense to me or whatever. So if the mix calls for that, like if it's that Foo Fighters thing and the crazy like section of it, it might feel good to do it there. But I'm thinking of it as like, what is my body doing to you know, while this is happening, and what's the internal emotion that's happening from that? So, but yeah, to answer, I usually land around 9 or 8, I'd say. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, yeah.
All right. So I'm an artist, not an engineer or anything like that, so this is a naive question. I'm aware of that.
You got to cherish it. Hold on to that. Stay where you're. Yeah. That's awesome.
I just want to know anything you can tell me about, like, how do I find somebody whose mixing style I like, or how do I know that the mixing is what makes it sound that way versus production, mastering, even just like stylistic choices?
Great question. And to prove that's a great question, we can think back to the Paramore and Failure thing, right? Same mixer, 2 different sounds, right? I think number one, see, this is hard for me to answer as a mixer too, because not every record that I mix I would call like a representation of personal style either, because I'm trying to find the aesthetic of the artist. So I think it starts with finding records that you love the sound of, like records that really pull you in and made you say like, wow, that's a mix. Like something would make you think, I should find out who mixed this record, right? That would be the place to start. And then I would go on like Discogs or something like that and find other records that they mixed and see how, you know, those kind of stack up to it. And then see, you know, maybe some, like you're saying, like, was it the artist, was it the producer, all of those things. You might try to find other records from those people and see like, okay, well, there's common themes with this producer, but not with this artist or this mixer. Or vice versa, with the mixer, yes, but not with the artist or the producer or something like that. I think like going through all of the people that are involved in that record making process might help you pinpoint that, if that's the mixer or not. Also, I think the fastest way is a conversation with that person. People are much more open to conversations, especially if they're, you know, talking about doing work, but they're much more open than I think that we think that they are. Like most of the guys on the site will definitely answer a DM on Instagram, and they're happy to talk about this stuff all day long, you know. So I think like reaching out to them and having a conversation and just saying like, hey, I, you know, love this record. I'm a similar artist, you know, I'd love to have a conversation about mixing with you. And then in that conversation, you know, you might just ask them questions like that that would qualify them as a person that you would trust with your art, basically, right? Like, so one other thing that I think can help, I've had 2 artists do this in the last 5 years, and I wish that so many more did it, but first one, 2 great records too, I'll name them, they deserve it. So Buggy is the first one. Her name's Gretchen King. She was in a band called Fantods in Columbus a long time ago. But she made a record that I absolutely love. And when she came to me about mixing the record, it was between me and the guy who mixed Nickelback. Her music sounds nothing like Nickelback, but it was the guy who mixed Nickelback. So she was talking to him because she could afford him and stuff, and she knew him. So when she came to me to talk about it, first, she sent me all the demos, and she sent me a PDF that explained the entire record, both like where she came from as an artist, like what brought her to making a solo record. Like she told me about herself in this PDF, and then it talked about the songs. And it was a concept record, which is a little bit easier to do with this. Actually, Wyatt did this very same thing, and awesome. Like I hold on to these things because I love them so much or whatever. Basically, I've had it called an album schema. I mean, I forget what verbiage you use. Yeah, a treatment, just like a movie, right? So yeah, Wyatt did the exact same thing, like writing out like this song is about this, I envision it being this way. With hers, it was everything from like pop. It started out as a pop record, and then it moved into this dark, ethereal, like industrial kind of thing, and then it went to this like really beautiful, calm thing at the end of it. And she explained the arc of the story as I went through that, each song, the emotions that she was going for in all of them. And when I got that PDF and listened to it, it was like immediately it pulled me in as like, I completely understand this artist because they've made it so clear what they're going for. And then it was just a conversation between the 2 of us of like her asking, you know, okay, did you read the PDF? And right off the bat, if it was like, oh, I haven't had a chance to yet, sorry. Like, probably not the guy or whatever, like, you know, it was something that pulled me in right away enough to do that. And then it was just a conversation like, okay, let's listen to the demos together. And okay, on this song, I'm hearing this with the rough mix that you sent me. I think I envision it going this way. What do you think about that? And then just having these conversations very quickly like told us if we were a good fit or not to work on the record together. The second record was a band from Colorado called Black Moon Howl. And they delivered everything from like this, it's another concept record. It moves from life to death, and they would talk about the stage of life that each song was in and the actual phase of the moon in each one. And we had like a long Zoom call before I started working on the record about like, yeah, tell me about like where we're at in the story by the time that we get to track 6. And you know, do you hear things, not to like get nerdy with them, even though the guy was perfectly capable of being nerdy, but it was, you know, do you hear things getting darker at this point? Or are we doing like a clear, everything is audible mix, or are we doing a muddy mix? And back to your first point about how do you know, from listening to mixes, Black Moon Howl is the record that you guys can go listen to. If you played a mix for me from that record, I would be like, that sounds like a muddy mess, if you were asking me to evaluate as a mix engineer. But I sat with that artist for multiple sessions, and we went from my first interpretation, which was like, I need to make this clear because everything got real muddy during production and they did too many tracks and all that stuff. But we wound up going back to the muddy thing because of stylistically what that song was supposed to do in the context of the record. So it can be a tricky thing for a mixer to be like, go listen to my work and see if you want to work with me. So much of it is based on the artist, the song, all of that stuff. So not everything on my demo reel is stuff that I would be like, listen to me, Mark the mixer, or whatever. It's really hard to do that because every record's different and all of those things too. So I would, again, like just look at the artist, listen to their other records. If they've done them with different producers, listen to the producers' other records, the mixers' other records, and then have conversations.
And Discogs is like the best way to get that information?
Yeah, I think that one's really good. My favorite place to go is Tidal. So it's also my streaming service of choice. Tidal.com. So Tidal, yeah, it sounds the best to me. Apple Music also sounds really good, but Tidal has impeccable credits on it. Outside of Tidal, Discogs, there's another one. Help me out, John.
All music?
All Music.
Muso, yeah.
Yeah, Muso, yeah. Muso's great because it tells everybody that they're in the top 2% of mixing engineers worldwide. I love Muso. It's great. Yes.
Have you ever had people give you comps, any kind of say, here, I want my song to kind of sound like this?
Totally, yeah. Yeah, so with that, that's another conversation of, okay, you want to, like, you're sending this as a reference. What is it about this song that you think is similar to your song? And I'll try to narrow down from where they're saying, like, this is the reference mix for the song. Okay, what about the reference mix? Do you like the vocal sound? Do you like the sound of the drums? Like, what is it specifically? And they'll be like, oh, I just thought the synth patch sounded cool. Or whatever. I've had people send me roughs that sound nothing like the song I'm mixing too. And that can just be a total confusing thing. The thing that I feel is important about roughs and references, I always want a good rough mix from the client. And it's not necessarily, I want them to go do an amazing mix. It's not that I want them to do their job, my job for me or whatever, but I want to hear what their interpretation of the song is. So I want, if they don't have a rough mix, if they were making the record themselves and it doesn't sound like a mix, I at least want the thing that they've been driving around with for, however long since they finished the song. So I can hear what they're used to and what they thought, different levels should be or something like that, just to get a picture. That's more important to me than them saying, like, I want it to sound like the Foo Fighters or something, but yeah.
And another question, being new to the area, is this area oversaturated with engineers? Are they,
Yeah, I don't think so. I have, you'll have to like keep me from getting on a soapbox about this. I have a serious feeling about this, and that is there's two mindsets. There's abundance mindset, and there's the opposite of that, scarcity mindset. Yeah. There are so many musicians in this town and so many records being made every single day in just Columbus or whatever. I think that there's more than enough work for everybody. I think that a lot of times we fool ourselves into thinking that there's competition and, Jimmy's an engineer in town here, Rob's an engineer in town, and these guys are guys that I want to go to coffee with. I don't want to worry about like, who's going to get the next record from so-and-so band. There are a lot of engineers in Columbus, but there's a lot of engineers everywhere. Full Sail's kicking out like 1,000 a year, right? And that's just Full Sail. When I went to college, there were two places that you could go. It was Full Sail or it was the Conservatory of Recording Arts. And now I could go to like, the Ohio State branch in Athens and get a recording degree or whatever. So I think that there's a million engineers everywhere. Everybody's got a laptop. Don't worry about it and just find artists that you want to make art with. And I try to just not pay attention to it. If I ever catch myself paying attention to it, I'll snooze an account on Instagram or something like that. Like if I'm like, oh man, that studio got that record, that sucks, I really want to snooze it. Why do I care? Just like let it go. It doesn't matter. There's another record to make and there's another artist and maybe you'll work with that artist later. I also think artists should work with other engineers and just make music, That obviously doesn't like really solve the whole thing of like, well, I got bills to pay. But I really do believe in like have an abundance mindset, everybody's friends, as much as that's not very clear, but I do remember that I have one other thing I want to point out before the end of the talk. So does anybody have another question? Yes?
Real quick, what advice would you give to an up-and-coming mixing engineer that's like wanting to be in a position like yours one day, doing like 200 to 300 mixes per year, having
of him. It's like this ridiculous thing that I think you built. It's like a movie. It's like this projector that goes 180 in front of you. So he put up like a giant timer on the thing, and he goes, Bohemian Rhapsody, sit down. I was like, holy crap. So he filmed the whole thing too, so I have that. But yeah, anyway, that was like a ridiculous track count, and it's Bohemian Rhapsody, and I had 10 minutes on the clock. So really good exercise. Totally recommend that. What's that? Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's not like go back to the first verse and see how it sounds. It's like, that's it, that's all the time you have. Yeah. Any other questions? I got one other practice thing there. If for engineer friends, if you're wondering about compression still, it's okay. There's a group that meets on Tuesday mornings at 10. Sorry. Really good thing to do, and this is again going back to the idea of practicing. Pull up a multi-track, pull up a compressor, and just sit there and play with the settings outside of the concept of I have to do a mix today. Pull it up, put the compressor on there, see what doing a fast attack, fast release does, see what fast attack, slow release does, and just do these really boring, mundane tests on things and learn the sound of your gear. Learn what compressors do. Learn what different reverbs sound like. You've got 20 of them in your plugin folder. I promise you, I know. So, like, just pull those things up and get to know the sound of them and practice every day. That's a good one. So, yeah. Anything else? If no other questions, I'm going to play the songs. I'll put up, I rated Scott's Spotify account and made the playlist in there on the studio computer. So I'll have that in there. If you guys want to listen to any of those songs on good monitors, you can. That room, I really, really love that room. It was purpose-built, ground up, floating floor, the ceilings on springs, however that works. Pretty sweet. So it's also, I should shout out, Trinov is a studio tuning company, and we have something called the Trinov Nova in there that Matt tuned the room with. Also, shout out, this is Matt Hagberg here in the back. Matt is, Matt. Matt's title is assistant studio manager, but he keeps the place going day to day quite a bit of the time. So Matt, thank you. And thanks for doing all this stuff. Next to Matt is Scott Saylor. Scott is an engineer here as well. These guys are super, super talented. I had a son 6 years ago, and I had to step away from here a little bit and be at home more. And I trust those guys completely. With it was definitely a thing to like step away from a studio that you built and worked in every day for 10 years, and then have to do that. But these guys keep it rocking, and it's awesome. So thank you guys. Next to Scott is Madeline Jarrell. Madeline's awesome. So Madeline's my assistant. She preps all my sessions and everything, and has to listen to me go old man soapbox all the time. And then, yeah, thank you, Music Columbus, for throwing this together and for having me do it and bringing everybody here. Yeah, sweet. And thank you guys for coming too. If VMS Recording is the studio website, if you want to learn more, puremix.net is the other thing I told you about. And then I'm at markabramsmixing.com. Feel free to email me, DM me on Instagram, any of that stuff. So, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. Cool. Thank you.